But I mean, you raised some very interesting points of synergy. You're an architect, he's an artist, and this painting right behind us behind you, and I can't keep my eyes off it, sums up a description that Hussein made earlier, that your ability to play on bringing out the human soul in the human form on canvas is extremely intense, because if I could describe what I'm seeing, there's light falling on a woman who's obviously opened what looks like a book of scripture. And there are other women around her who are basking in the light that's bouncing off of her. But one could also say it's light coming out of her. How do you do something like this? How does it come? How does it all come together?
For this particular painting, I was looking at the fact that scripture, for me, defines tradition and culture, because you can't add to it and you can't take away from scripture. It means that there was a paradigm, a time when scripture was established. And could we say a day when that ended? It's just like finishing a project. And after that, you can't change anything. But within scripture, we have verses. And each verse has its own, it mushrooms, it grows. But people have favorite verses. And that's why in the painting, there's a bookmark in there. But she's not reading from where the bookmark is. Okay, so maybe it's a very popular verse she's reading from, looking at the expressions. But when I was putting this painting together, I wanted light to fall on her, like you're saying, and let the light bounce off her. Okay, so there's light on the floor, and then the light is supposed to come from a doorway, so you can see where it cuts across. And that's why I said sometimes it's just a very simple thing. Scripture is for enlightenment, and it might sound very, very basic, but the light falling on her, as you say, is reflected into the room.
Wow. This is great stuff. I mean, we've talked about arts, the science that goes into it. Of course, there's a lot of physics going on in here. Being able to identify at what angle the light should hit the subject in the middle, and how it would reflect and basically cascade across the canvas itself. And you see how there's a gradual shift towards the edges where you have more shadows, but the people are still not lost in the darkness. It demonstrates what you're saying, you talked about, that the art itself always will lend itself to math, to geometry, even physics, How do you interpret the concept of sustainability? Today, sustainability might mean green housing, might mean, only using recycled materials and the circular economy and all of that. But is there anything beyond that when it comes to art and architecture?
I think, Shira, that sustainability it can be a deep concept. I mean, so, I think there's 70% of the sustainability concepts or target can be achieved through passive design strategies, or if it's not design, passive thinking strategies. If it is industrial, passive engineering strategies. And this alone is it's mainly falls on the person who is putting the plan or who is putting the idea and so on. to push it in a way that you achieve 70% of your goals in terms of sustainability by designing well and by thinking well and by approaching the problem that you have between your hands properly, you know. And if I want to, let's say, give you an example, in my work, one of the projects that I really worked extensively on that is beyond where we are today. So those, like I said before, those beautiful cantilevered slabs that have those cutouts and patterns and so on, that looks for who is passing in front of it that they are cultural elements. It's true they are cultural, they are aesthetic, they are design elements, but technically they are shading elements. So if you look around or you analyze well, you will see that those slabs from the north direction, they are very short. They don't cantilever much. They rather cantilever more from the south side where our sun is more, present. Okay. So this is how you use sustainability to the favor of architecture or to the favor of design or to the favor of aesthetics. Okay, if you look, let's say, at preserving, let's say, those 50 years old trees that I told you about, it's a touch of green, but also it's a touch of oxygen, and also it's a message of preservation. It can be a branding, if you want to think business, it can be a branding element that no billboard can replace, no logo can replace, nothing, no advertisement can replace. It can stand there and say that these people who did this building, they thought of every single detail. And this applies on other things. When you see the big full height windows that gives natural light, natural ventilation. So this is a big passive design thinking exercise. Okay, and then you can go in every single detail after that to come to that. The remaining 30% are mostly, let's say, procurement issues and selection of materials and electrical, mechanical, engineering, and so on. But if you design well as an architect, you will make the job of the engineering and the job of the procurement and the job of the other things.
Less of a nightmare.
Less of a nightmare. And I can say that in art, as far as the art is appreciated for a long term, and as far as it is really, it has a message, then it is sustainable. Okay, so some artworks, like if I want to give an example also of Victor's art, when I came to Ghana 20 years back, I used to see at some friends and family members' houses pieces of art of Victor.
Okay.
This is how I get to know about him first. Those same piece of art, I still value it and I still remember it, okay, and it still means something to me. So that means that this design element of this artwork has a value that can survive and that can last. Okay, so this applies on everything, on every discipline. If everything you give it the right thinking, if everything you design it well, you give it the extra mile, you give it the extra effort of thinking and so on, it will be sustainable. It will sustain, and then it will serve the users or the community or for a longer period of time. And this is a more philosophical aspect, I think, for the notion of sustainability.
Yeah.
You know?
Perfect. I mean, Victor, for you, would you say the longevity of an art piece or the longevity of a building? I mean, Hussein makes mention of, for me, my favorite feature about Beyond is the tree living side by side with the building, going through the cantilever and the shading as though it grew through it. Again, it demonstrates the thinking. How do you see longevity? What's your take on longevity or sustainability?
All right. It's interesting that old art is called sometimes called artifacts. Okay. So you go to the museum, you see artifacts.
Right.
And if you break the word down, in all its simplicity, is the fact that the art is still around. Okay. Our traditional art forms are usually, they stand the test of time. But I will say, when I was preparing for this collection, Nuance, I tried to break down the word sustainability, or something that can withstand change, to a question of permanence versus relevance. If you put those two together, like 1 + 1, and then we go across the equal sign, you should have an answer on the right. Okay, that answer for me is the fact that you've put the right things together and you can simplify it on the right side. So permanence and relevance, okay, should make a painting, a building, an art piece relevant for a long time. So if you have a building or an art piece that after time it seems not to be relevant, then there was something questionable about the original idea. But somebody might argue that I didn't want it to live for long. That's why I designed it like that. That's the art thing. But the bottom line is, I think permanence and relevance work together if something is supposed to be sustainable.
And so if permanence and relevance ought to work together, how do you ensure that more and more people who are going into either architecture or art or both are able to collaborate, like both of you have, to create functional and aesthetically pleasing ideas that live for now, but will stand the test of time over a period?
I don't see that. The needs of people are changing much. Through time. Okay, the style is changing, of course. From one generation to the other. But let's say the shelter. It used to be something, okay, now it's something else, but still it's a shelter and it's a need. The psychological relief or happiness that you get by seeing a nice art used to be on a certain scale or on a certain level or on a certain style. Today it's on a different style or level, but it's still a need. So I think collaboration, like I said earlier, of minds, of hands, of hearts is very important. And I think we call ourselves, we sell, our ideas and our minds. We should be able also to see the future. So now one of the major aspects, that I raise always with my team members and also with my clients and with my friends, that we have to start to design things that the coming generation will appreciate, even, to keep that continuity and that sustainability. So this is why it's very important to have a fresh mind, in a certain team, or for you to read different books from younger generation, for you to interact with different intellectual backgrounds, also from different generation, to be able to really keep your message or your work livable for a certain time. This is how I really see it. I mean.
Okay. Now, Victor, in terms of the sustainability, is it something that can be justified, be it financially, in the scheme of things of art? And I would want your thoughts on that as well. Because, pardon my ignorance, if you're painting on canvas, whether it's an inspired piece or a commissioned piece, you may not work to strict budgets as, say, Hussein, Building Beyond. Mm-hmm. So at what point do you say, I'm going gung-ho because this is going to be great, but I can see how sustainable it will be in the future? And so you throw away the issue of budget. How do you balance the two?
Well, I think somehow budget always finds its way into any creative expression.
Okay.
I mean, if somebody likes to dance at home in their living room and everybody says you're a very good dancer, it takes a budget to put you on the stage for people to come and watch. Mm. So there's always, art always has a cost for presentation. You can have an idea, but if you don't budget to how you want to present it, then there will be a problem. So I like your question, because budget is part of any artistic endeavor, but the cost is a different thing. It might be at no cost if people contribute to it.
Okay.
You see. So I think the societal contribution to art, architecture, all the art forms is something that we have to have on as a national conversation, because art is just like it's just like somebody who the expression of a person who is, let's say, patriotic. There's no cost to being a patriot.
That's true.
You know, it is a state of mind. You see, so if we want to see more art, more architecture, the budget, the capital comes from people's contributions.
How does that contrast to the world of architecture?
I mean, what Victor said is very interesting. I will start with the budget, okay? You know, I have a little bit of background in business, but anything, any project, okay, if you don't link it to financial target or to a budget or to cost and revenue or whatever, it fails. Automatic as a mindset of the team who is working around you. If you don't tell them we have to achieve this with this budget, or we have to make a return of this amount or something, the team, I don't know why, but the team by itself doesn't get interested much. So the budget is very important also for you to be able not to do only one job, for you to be able to repeat and to sustain what you are trying to do, you know. So it's very important that we keep that element, I mean, as part of the list. Although the most important things in life, or the things that makes us happy and proud, they are not about quantity or cost. They are more about quality and values and so on. Having this, in mind, comes to the idea that Victor said at the end. Okay, so we can sacrifice by thinking more. We can sacrifice by putting our mindset in the right place to achieve a certain sustainable job, a certain job that has a lot of qualities and values and so on. So this effort, okay, you will get maybe exhausted, you will get tired, but it will pay back, not, I mean, financially, but it will pay back in terms of
With a certain level of fulfillment.
You know? Yeah. And I always say also from experience that if you have a long-term vision, all sacrifices on that level pays back in the future, you know? So, I mean, if I want to give you a very recent example, like the issue of the trees and beyond, I got like people calling me that they are interested to do a project with me because of the trees that I was able to preserve.
That's great.
You know, so some ideas, okay, like I said, the intention is to do something sustainable, something good, something that makes you proud, that makes you happy, that gives you a certain fulfillment. But this doesn't contradict with your branding exercise, your personal branding or your company or your organization branding exercise. But you have to have the stamina to do it and to accept that you are gonna do effort, sacrifice, do work. And then I'm confident that those things pays back.
Wow.
Yeah.
Great stuff.
Yeah.
Now, let's get into your lives a little bit. Architect, artist, you've both been at this for the most part of your life. I mean, you're talking about doing an exhibition to mark your 40 years of putting your work out there. Now, tell me, Victor, in these 40 years of work, what are some of the things that you've observed about your own work in the world of art that you say would live with you forever?
Well, I'll say time is a very interesting element in physics. It determines how fast anything goes, but time itself is called an independent variable. That means it doesn't change, other things change around it. Okay. So speed is dependent on time, but time is independent of speed. So it's been 40 years. Time for me has been still, but it is a change, you know, of the society, of the world, you know. When I started painting, at my second exhibition, I was having an exhibition in France, and that's when the Berlin Wall was going down. Okay. Now that is not a reference. Okay. In Ghana, we've been through all our political and economic changes. But like Hussein was saying, there are things that are not dependent on what goes around, but it should capture something. So I'll say that in terms of my technique, not too much has changed. My choice of materials, though, my favorite medium is actually watercolor.
Okay.
Let's work on paper. But paper doesn't do well in Ghana. It will get mildew if it's not framed properly, and it means that it's not sustainable. So even though, that is my favorite medium, I don't do too much work. But I've kept all my sketches, and I found a way now to get paper to be resistant to mildew, which is my own research over a period.
Wow.
And so people will see more of my watercolors going forward. But to mark the 40 years, I'll say things have changed. Inspiration changes because of what is prevailing. And so I hear that when you have a difficult question, you say that's a good question. but I'll say that tradition and culture, they should be the permanent underpinnings of every society.
Mm-hmm. Hussein, how about you? Would you do the same project you did 20 years ago if you were to do that again, all over again?
One thing that I will do again in my life is architecture.
Okay.
And of course, my family. Yeah. Same project. If I will repeat it, I will repeat it in the same mindset, but maybe in a different language.
Okay.
In a different expression method. Because, I mean, of course, today, I mean, Key is 25 years old, my company.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been into architecture from the year I started university till today. We are talking about 34 years. So I'm in this domain since 34 years. So definitely there has been a lot of changes in the practice that happened from that day to today. So when I was at the university, we were just drawing and drafting manually. And today, the same applies to the construction methods and so on. So definitely the same mindset will be there. I mean, to value, like I said, the context, the tradition, the culture, everything. But then the methods will be different. Okay. But yeah, some projects, they are still, we did it 20 years back, they are still functioning well, they are still, which is a good, I mean, fulfillment for me as a professional person. Yeah, so that's it.
Wow. I mean, this is a fantastic conversation. I'm taking away so much. And just before we wrap up, I just want to get final thoughts from you. Young people who are excited about the world of art and architecture. One word for them, Victor.
I think that people must follow the path that you're on, because the path will always lead. Okay. If you find yourself on a path where you know I'm comfortable and I have something to say, I will learn, knowledge is important, and I'll stick on this path. For me, that's all you need. Okay. You don't really need to look back. Yeah.
You say?
I will tell them to be always hungry. Okay, hungry to learn more, hungry to explore more, hungry to put all their best, I mean, on the table and on the work that they are doing. I will tell them that there's nothing that is impossible. Okay, it's only the mindset, and then the efforts, and then the thinking, and then the mission and the vision that you have in your mind. Okay, be sure that there is a big responsibility on you, that every brick you put can make people happy or can make people miserable, that every line you draw can possibly change somebody's life. So it's, and this applies to all the disciplines and all the professions, that it's not by chance you are a doctor or you are a journalist or you are a writer or an artist. Okay, you have a mission, and it deserves that you give it your best shot. Okay, not just for the professional aspect, but for the human aspect and for the purpose of your life, you know. And if you are privileged to have the chance to learn and to go to university and to become an architect or a doctor or an engineer or an artist, you have to pay back to whoever gave you that blessing and to your society and to your country and to humanity in general. So it's a big responsibility every one of us has between his hands and in the pockets of his mind. So yeah, that's it.
Wow, wonderful. Well, thank you very much, Victor and Hussein. For me, I have 5 things I'm taking out of this conversation. I think that the very first thing starts with what Hussein calls context, and Victor will call inspiration. Essentially, it's the canvas on which you will live your life and do your work. And so you need to be completely aware of where you're from, where you are, where you want to go, what's around you, and how you can have a harmonious interplay between all of these elements in telling your own story and expressing yourself. Number 2 is immersion. You can't have understanding without immersing yourself. And so if you're going to seek knowledge and be great at doing something, you need to get into the environment, understand where you are, understand how things work, and how you can now go about weaving and bringing different elements together to tell a story. The third thing is find synergy. Now, you may say, I'm an architect, he's an artist. Oh, we're in competition, or we're in different spheres. But the possibilities of what the two of you can achieve as a unit together far outweighs what you would have achieved if you were doing it all by yourself. The fourth thing is find environments that help you grow. Find friends who challenge you. And thank God if you have parents who will encourage you, like Victor's, and of course, like Hussein's family. The support you get from your immediate environment shapes you, gives you the resilience and the confidence you need to be able to keep going. And I think the final thing in all of this is that you must be forward looking and thinking in what you do. Because a lot of the work we do is not really meant for us. It's meant for people who will come after us to be inspired, to be encouraged, to be able to do more than we have done. That is how societies evolve. This has been Sunday Night. My guest has been Hussein Fakhry, a very visionary and celebrated architect, and Victor Butler, who is equally celebrated and an iconic artist. We express profound gratitude to you for joining us and having us for company. We're bringing you more of Sunday Night, where we showcase the best minds. I'm Kweku Ishirado. Go forward, make great.